Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I would like to look at a lovely, what we call a Holy Grail, MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup that is just unfolded on a 3-minute chart of the DAX. This was a setup we went through in great detail in our MTPredictor training webinar for customers yesterday, so I'd like to go through the steps for uncovering these trade setups now. As with everything, we look to the higher time frame chart to look for our larger degree trend. So for this we go to the 15-minute chart. Ideally we look for a time frame that's between 3 and 5 times higher than the time frame we're actually looking to trade off. So for this we go back to this 15-minute chart. You can see there's a pivot high here, which was basically the last big swing down into the low here. There's a little minor swing here, but that wasn't very much to speak of at all. So this was the last major swing here. So if we right mouse click, place decision point, this would have been a level that would have been on your chart in advance. Now it's very important to understand this, that this level would have been here before the DAX even reached it. In other words, this would have been preparing you in advance for this higher time frame resistance level. Let's now go down to the 3-minute chart, and here we can see it on the 3-minute chart. There's actually a nice TS3 buy setup on the way up to this this resistance area as well, but the setup I want to look at is this TS1 sell. Remember, this would gauge the large degree trend as being down after this, so we'd be looking for sell setups, so we'd be avoiding this TS4 buy. But why do I like this TS1 sell more than anything else? Well, it's because it's what we call a Holy Grail trade setup. So what's a Holy Grail trade setup? It's where in Elliott wave terms we have an initial decline of an important high. The important high was defined as being a high at higher time frame resistance, which is exactly what you can see there. Remember, we put that 15-minute DP on. The market came up to that DP, has now made an initial decline. We then get an initial correction. This initial correction to unfold in a minor ABC. So if I do Elliott wave minor, you can see there's your ABC. That then in Elliott wave terms is a wave 2. After that we're anticipating a wave 3 swing. So if I just clear this all off, you can see here's our TS1 sell. If I right mouse click, place the analysis on this red sell bar, you can see that here we have our position sizing, taking account of the number of contracts to trade. In this case, to keep the risk less than 2% on a sample $20,000 account. Note how we actually have the risk defined in dollars, even though it's a DAX which is traded in euros. This is because in the background we adjust the tick size to make sure that all the initial risks are kept constant on your account size. So for example, if I'd actually had a euro account, you can see the tick value is in euros there, and that would be the risk in euros. In that particular case it would be a 50,000 euro account. But let's go back to our default count, which is 20,000 US dollars. So how do we manage this? Well, because this is a wave 2, we're anticipating a wave 3, therefore the initial target will be down here at the typical wave 3 WPT. As you can see, the market has just reached this area very nicely, where a profit of approximately 8R, or 8 times the initial risk, was available. And this is why I like these Holy Grail trade setups, is because you are trading the longest wave in a completed 5-wave sequence, which means the profit is normally large, but large in relation to the initial risk. So here a profit of just over $3,000 for an initial risk of approximately $383, ignoring slippage and commission, was a very, very good trade setup indeed. So this has been a good example of the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup unfolding today on a 3-minute chart of the DAX. And I wanted to go through this because we covered this in great detail in our MTPredictor training webinar for customers yesterday. So it was all set up by having this 15-minute DP resistance zone on your chart in advance. We then started the sequence there, the initial decline wave 1, the initial correction wave 2 that subdivided into minor ABC, TS1 sell there, down to the typical wave 3 WPT, where a profit of approximately 8 times the initial risk was available. So a great example of the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup that's literally just unfolded now on the DAX. Here we are just a little while later, and as you can see the market has gone beyond our typical wave 3 WPT here and has actually reached the 15-minute DP support a bit lower down. So I'll just take that off. In fact, actually what I'll do is I'll just go to the 15-minute chart and show you where that came from. I'll just take that one off. There it is gone. So this was the last swing into the high, and this was the last pivot low. So this was where the 15-minute support would have come in. So if we now go down to our 3-minute chart, you see the market has actually reached the 15-minute DP. So was there any reason to want to hold on to your trade past the typical wave 3 WPT? Well, if we come down to our STF indicator at the bottom, you can see the STF was what we call strong. In other words, when you hit the typical wave 3 WPT here, it had gone beyond our grey strength band. So this gave you permission to let the trade run a bit further. Normally we'd suggest running with your ATR stop, which is our red dots here. So if you were doing this strategy, your stop would now be here at plus 8.9 or almost 9R profit. Or if you had decided to look to this higher time frame support level down here and just come out at this level, you'd be on about 14.8, or can I call it 15R? Is that close enough as rounding? And if so, that would be a very, very good trade indeed. As you can see, that would have turned initial risk of approximately $383, ignoring slippage and commission, into a profit of just over 5,600, or almost 15 times greater than the initial risk. So that would be a very good place to want to actually bank profit, because it was at the higher time frame 15-minute support level. But either way, whether you'd come out of the typical wave 3 WPT and banked an 8.1R profit, or trailing with your ATR stop here and currently locking in about 8.9 or 9R profit, or coming out at this level for approximately 15R profit, as you can see, this has turned out to be a very nice Holy Grail trade at this TS1 sell here. And again, hopefully this shows why I like the Holy Grail the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup as one of my favourite trade setups, because it has the potential to create some of the largest profits for the smallest initial risk. Again, the Holy Grail is not because it has a high percentage of winners, it's because these profits are large, and they're large in relation to a small initial risk. So this is why it's one of my favourite trade setups, and why MTPredictor was created in the first place over 15 years ago, now back in 2001.